where would you tell the people at Prudential to invest, to make loans? And Prudential is also involved in investments.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's not your side of the coin, but where is Prudential looking to invest, and what are they looking to do?
You know, we've looked at several apartment communities in Williamsburg. We haven't done one yet, but, you know, definitely interested in that area. Long Island City, I think we're very, you know, bullish in terms of what's happening in that area, in terms of the transportation, the 7 train coming across town. So that's an area that we're focused on as well. And, you know, Brooklyn, overall, we have, you know, we hire a lot of analysts out of undergrad, and I'll tell you the majority of them go in to live in Brooklyn. And that seems to be the place and the preferred place. It's not even that they're doing it because they don't want to live in Manhattan. It's just that they want to be in Brooklyn. So, you know, I think in Staten Island, you know, we've done several grocery-anchored retail centers. You know, be happy to do, you know, it's such
I think the
infill
Musses have
location.
a shopping center in Staten Island, right? You've been in Staten.
In general, we've noticed the lender interest from insurance companies in the boroughs outside of Manhattan to be tremendous over the last 3 years, 4 years. All kinds of different lenders that see these properties for what they are, which is incredibly safe, upward trajectory properties that are very rarely empty. They've recognized what Melissa is talking about. Absolutely.
Joe and everyone, you know, Steve, when I asked Steve Witkoff the question, I'll ask you all the question. The far west side, okay, the Hudson Yards, you know, the Javits Center, which has been a failure for years. How do you look at development? I mean, Will, you have a hotel not too far from there. It's not a Jade. Do you think that the Hudson Yards is the next, as Steve Ross said, the next Rockefeller Center of the 21st century?
I think he's correct. I think Hudson Yards, it's going to develop over the next, 15, 20 years. But where can you find a piece of land that big? And although it's a platform, it's not technically a piece of land, but a property where you can do something so substantial with so many city blocks, you just can't. And I think that there is a likelihood that if you look at what you're doing with the Culture Shed and the Highline Terminus and everything else that's going on over there, it's going to be a major destination. Fast forward 20 years from now, when some of us are still sitting in this room, it's going to be on the map.
What? Yes, Scott?
I just want to relay a story. A friend of mine who I went to school with lives in Chicago. He comes to New York on business a few times a year, basically stays at the Peninsula, goes to some fancy hotels, and goes back. And so he came in for an extended stay about a month ago, and I took him around to, I said, you haven't really been to New York in a while where you've sort of ventured out of your 6-block comfort zone. And we took a car and went over to the West Side and drove over to the Hudson and Highline. And he's a pretty enlightened fella, and he said to me, wow, they're building a city over here. This was a pretty sharp guy's response. And then we drove around a lot of other parts of Manhattan that he hadn't been in 25 years, and but especially over on the West Side and even west of where our properties are, and see this tremendous draw from the river sort of now going east, where we're looking at values on 7th and 8th Avenue, where the rents sometimes in these buildings are more than on 6th Avenue, and gigantic sort of head spinner for us from just 4 or 5 years ago. So I think...
But that relates to a good comment both for the 3 people who are developers, Jason, Joe, and my friend Will. Are there opportunities? Do you think it's time for a development like a Jade and a development like DDG, the luxury apartments on the far west side, Joe?
Yeah, we have pursued several sites on the far west side, and we're big believers in the west side. And I'll let Will address the hotel.
Yeah, so we have a couple of small hotels on the far west side, half a block from the Javits Center, and so we already have a play, if you will, in that neighborhood. We are interested for the right site to actually do more in that neighborhood. And the Javits Center, Michael, I agree, the Javits Center has been really a disaster for a long time. However, with the renovation that they've recently completed, I think what we're going to see are a lot more conferences that traditionally took place in Midtown moving to the Jacob Javits Center, which is really great news for the Hudson Yards area, for the Javits Center, for all those businesses around there, the 7 train, of course, we mentioned. And just one conference that I know of is the ICSC. In addition to hotels, my company owns and operates 25 retail shopping centers outside of New York. And the ICSC is the major retail trade association. They announced that next year, 2014...
They're leaving the Hilton?
Yes, they're leaving the Hilton, and they're coming to the Javits Center. That's really big news. That's big news, and I think it is a sign of more to come.
Peter, as a banker, how do you see the Far West Side?
I'll take a different. I think it's wonderful. I think I agree with everything. I think the subway, first of all, is gonna change and help tremendously. But the Hudson Yards is fully agree with the comments. Another interesting twist is the number of residential rental apartment buildings that people have been able to build there. We talked about the housing
Glenwood
shortage.
has numerous properties.
Yeah, we did
TF
3 for
Cornerstone.
Glenwood, TF Cornerstone. We've done 3 or 4 over there, and there are another 5 some very large residential apartment buildings that are going to be developed, 2 in ULURP right now. But in that corridor from the 30s up to call 57th Street. So that's going to add thousands of units and I think help further develop sort of a natural organic neighborhood with restaurants and other things that people want and really help move the neighborhood forward.
Since Mr. Witkoff really didn't talk about the Garden State, what's your thoughts about Jersey City, Hoboken, Fort Lee, the closer to New York City spots as opposed to further in the Garden State where Melissa lives too far away?
They're really an extension of Manhattan. I mean, they are New Jersey, but that is an office market. We've been active in Newport. For years, we financed the Westin Hotel in Newport. Hoboken, people love Hoboken. It seems to me, from growing up in the city, it draws a different tenant. It draws people who come south or come from New Jersey. Their families are there, whereas many people who come to New York today, I find the majority would rather live in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is an edgier, hipper, cooler place, and Hoboken people love, and it's just a different crowd, but it's very successful in its own right.